Welcome to Noah's narrative, where every story feels real and every moment hides something deeper. Tonight's story is not just about money and it's not about love. It is about a man who had everything except control over himself. A millionaire, a broken routine, a girl with no greed in her heart, and one meeting inside a club that slowly changed everything. So stay with me till the end because this story begins with music, smoke, and darkness, but it ends in a way no one could have expected. He was rich enough to buy anything he wanted, but too lost to save himself. Every night he sat in the same corner of the same club, glass in hand, pain in his eyes, and silence in his soul. People around him saw money, they saw status, they saw power, but one girl saw something else. She saw a man quickly destroying his own life, and the strange thing was, she was the first person who dared to tell him the truth. What started as one small warning became a connection neither of them understood, but sometimes the people who try to save you end up becoming the reason you are finally forced to face your past. And when the truth about the millionaire's pain finally came out, everything changed. The man who had everything except peace, in the center of city under the cold lights of tall glass buildings, there was a man everyone seemed to know. His name was Adrian Vale. He was young, successful, and extremely rich. He owned hotels, restaurants, a luxury real estate company, and shares in business. People only talked about from a distance. His name appeared in magazines. His photos appeared in newspapers. When he entered a room, people noticed. Some admired him, some feared him, some wanted to become him. But nobody truly knew him. Because the real Adrian Vale did not live in the newspapers, the real Adrian existed in the late hours of the night, inside a dark club called Velvet Room. Every evening after meetings, papers, calls, and fake smiles, Adrian disappears there. Always the same table, always the same drink, always the same tired eyes. The club was loud, but Adrian was quiet. The room was full, but he looked alone. People thought he came there to enjoy life, but the truth was simpler and sadder than that. He came there because he did not want to go home. His mansion was huge, silent, and cold. It had expensive walls, beautiful art, and rooms larger than most people's apartments, but none of them made it feel warm. A house becomes heavy when no one waits for you inside it, and Adrian had not felt truly waited for in years. At first, he only drank a little, a glass after work, then two, then more, then every night. Then every morning started feeling harder. Then every night started feeling necessary, and slowly, what begins as a habit became an escape. His assistants noticed the dark circles under his eyes. His driver noticed the smell. His staff noticed his mood changing and mood swings. His business partners noticed the late night rivals, but nobody said much. Because money creates a strange kind of silence around powerful men. People don't correct them. They don't question them. They don't step them. They simply move aside and let them fall in private. Adrian was not a cruel man. He did not shout for no reason. He did not treat poor people badly. He was not proud in the way people expected rich men to be, but he was broken in ways no one could see. and broken men often become strangers to themselves. There were nights when Adrian looked at his reflection in the glass in front of him and felt something close to fear. Not because he was losing money, not because he was losing status, but because he was losing control. Still he continued, night after night, drink after drink, smile after the fake smiles. He laughed with people he didn't trust. He sat beside women he didn't remember the next day. He listened to music he never heard, and under all of it, there was one deep truth he could not escape. He was tired of pretending, tired of his own emptiness, tired of carrying pain that had no name. But pain that is not faced usually finds another way to live. And Adrian's pain lived in portal. Then one night, someone new walked into the velvet room. And for the first time in a very long while, something changed. The girl who did not look at his money, her name was Alina. She did not enter the club like the others. She was not loud. She was not trying to be noticed. She was not dressed to impress rich men. She came because she had to. Alina worked part-time in the club's customer lounge section. She helped organize private bookings, handled guest requests, and sometimes served in the VIP area when the place got too busy. It was not that life she had imagined for herself, but life had become expensive and dreams had become patient. She lived with her sick mother in a small apartment on the older side of the city. The rent was too late often, medicine was costly, her younger brother was still studying, so Alina worked. Quickly, honestly, and constantly. She had learned early that life did not always reward good people quickly. But she had also learned something else. Even when life becomes hard, you do not need to lose your values with it. That was why she never smiled falsely for lips. Never pretended affection for gifts. Never encouraged drunk men just to earn favor. And maybe that was why, on her third night working near the VIP section, she noticed Adrian differently from everyone else. Not as a millionaire, not as an important man, but as a man in danger of slowly ruining himself. He came in around the same hour, sat down heavily, loosened his tie, and asked for the same drink. Strong, straight, immediate. He did not look at the people much, and people strangely looked at him too much. Some women whispered about him. Some men tried to impress him. Some staff became nervous in his presence, but Alina saw only one thing that mattered. His hands were steady when he signed papers, but not when he lifted the glass. That told her more than his expensive watch ever could. For several nights she said nothing. She simply observed. Sometimes he drank until past midnight. Sometimes until 2, sometimes until he could barely stand. His bodyguards would guide him out, his driver would open the car door, and the next night he would return again. It bothered her more than she expected. Not because she knew him, but because there was something deeply sad about watching a person destroy himself while the whole room pretended it was normal. One evening, the club was fuller than usual. Music was louder, lights were lower, more private guests had arrived. Alina moved carefully between tables with a small tray in her hand. When she raised Adrian's table, she noticed he already looked more tired than usual. His eyes were red, his jaw was tense, and there was something angry in his silence. He did not look up when she placed the glass in front of him. But just as she turned to leave, she heard him speak. Another one in 10 minutes. His voice was calm but tired. Alina looked at the untouched glass, then at him. Then, before she could stop herself, she said quickly, "You have not even finished this one." Adrian slowly looked up. It was the first time he really looked at her. Most people smiled too quickly when they spoke to him. Most people looked nervous. Most people wanted something, but this girl standing before him looked clear, steady, unafeared. "That's not your concern," he said. The words were not loud, but they were meant to end the conversation. Alina should have walked away. That would have been easier, smarter, safer, but something in her did not let her leave. So she said something no one in that club had probably ever said to him. "It should be your concern." Adrian stared at her. The music continued. People laughed nearby, glass clinked, but around their table, something had gone still. "What did you say?" he asked. Alina lowered her voice. "I said, it should be your concern. You come here every night. You treat like it doesn't matter, but it does matter. Maybe no one tells you this, but this is not normal." For a second, Adrian said nothing. Then a faint, humorless smile touched his face. "Do you usually lecture guests?" "Only the ones who look like they need someone to tell them truth." That answer should have annoyed him. It should have made him angry, but strangely it didn't. Because for the first time in a long life, someone was not speaking to his money. They were speaking to him. And Adrian had forgotten what that felt like. He leaned back in his chair. "And what truth is that?" Alina looked at the glass. यार है कि दोबारा करो
नहीं नहीं ये स्टार्ट करो ये जितना ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਨੇ ਹੈਕ ਲੈਣ ਪਿੱਛੋਂ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਕਰ
And one truth is that Alina looked at the glass, then back at him, that this is hurting you more than you admit. Her words were simple, but they landed deeply. He turned his face away for a moment, then reached for the drink. Alina, without thinking, put her hand lightly on the table beside the glass, not touching him, just stopping the moment. "Please," she said softly, "not this one." No one had ever spoken to him like that. Not in that place, not in that tone, not with that kind of honesty. And maybe that was why Adrian did something unexpected. He left the glass untouched. He stood up, put some bills on the table, and walked away without another word. Alina watched him go, her heart beating faster than it should have. She was sure she had made a mistake. She was sure she had made a mistake. Sure she would lose her job. Sure he would complain. Sure this would come back to hurt her. But the next night, Adrian returned, and everything between them began there. The second night, Alina expected anger or silence or cold distance. Instead of this, Adrian sat down in his usual chair and looked at the table for a while before ordering. When she approached, she kept her expression calm. "Good evening," she said. He nodded once. "Tea?" For a second, she thought she had heard him wrong. "Tea?" she repeated. "Yes," he said, "just tea." She almost smiled but stopped herself. "Of course." When she returned with the tea, he looked at her as if admiring her. You really thought you could tell a stranger how to live? He asked. Alina placed the cup down carefully. I didn't tell you how to live. I just told you this was not good for you. And you know that because no one drinks like that when they are happy. That answer stayed in the air between them. Adrian looked away. It was a small sentence, but it made avoiding the truth harder. He rested one hand against his jaw and looked toward the dance floor, though it was clear he was not watching it. You think you understand people very easily? No, Elena said. I just pay attention. He gave a quick breath that was almost a laugh. Then he looked back at her. What if I don't want to stop? Elena's answer came gently. Then one day something will stop for you. That time he really smiled, not happily but honestly. A sad smile, the kind that comes when someone says something true and you are too tired to deny it. She left him with the tea, and that night Adrian did not drink. Not once. He sat there for almost 2 hours, saying little, watching the room, occasionally glancing in Alina's direction when she was not looking. Before leaving, he called her over. What's your name? Alina. He repeated it once quickly. Then he stood, adjusted his coat, and said, You should be careful speaking like that to people. Alina held his gaze, and you should be careful killing yourself slowly. For a second, he looked like he might say something more, but he only nodded and walked away. Outside, inside his black car with the city lights moving across the window beside him, Adrian did something strange. He thought about her, not in the shallow way he was used to thinking about women, not because of her appearance, not because of interest, but because her words kept returning like a voice he could not silence. No one drinks like that when they are happy. He looked down at his own hands, and for the first time in months, he did not feel powerful. He felt seen, and being seen, after leaving behind walls for so long, can feel dangerously close to hope. The pain he never talked about, the next few days, followed an unfamiliar pattern. Adrian still came to the club, but less broken, less reckless. Some nights he ordered one drink and left it untouched. Some nights he only asked for coffee. Other nights he sat in silence while Alina worked nearby. The conversations were short, never dramatic, never too personal, but each one opened something small, and sometimes small openings are how a closed life begins to breathe again. One rainy night, the club was quieter than usual. Fewer guests, softer music, longer shadows. Adrian sat alone in his usual place, but there was something heavier about him. Alina noticed it immediately. When she came near, he asked for water. No alcohol, just water. She brought it to him and was about to leave when he asked, Do you always work this late? Most nights, she said. Why? Because bills don't care if I'm tired. He looked at her for a moment. It was not pity, it was a respect. Then he asked, Family? My mother is ill, she said simply, and my brother studies, so I work. That was all she said. No drama, no victim tone, just truth. Adrian nodded. He understood more than she expected. Not her exact life, but responsibility. The kind that quickly changes your age from young to older without asking permissions. After a while, he said, Do you ever feel tired of being strong? Alina looked at him carefully. Yes, she said. But I also know no one is coming to do life for me. That sentence struck something deep in him. He looked down at the watch glass, then finally asked the question he had been avoiding. Why did you speak to me that night? Alina was silent for a second. Then she said, because everyone around you was acting like watching you fall was normal. He looked at her slowly. And that bothered you? Yes. Why? Her voice softened because I know what it looks like when someone is giving up without saying it. The air changed. This time, Adrian did not hide behind sarcasm or distance. Who gave up? He asked. Alina's eyes lowered for a moment. My father, she said. Years ago, different reason, same silence. He did not ask more, and she did not explain more. Some pain does not need details to be understood. That night, for the first time, Adrian spoke about his own past. Not fully, not at all once, but enough. He told her he had once been engaged. Her name was Clara. They had known each other for years. He believed she loved him before the money became huge. He trusted her, built plans with her, built dreams with her. Then one day, without warning, she left. Not alone, with one of his closest business partners, and not just with his trust, with private documents, financial access, internal knowledge. The betrayal cost him more than money. It cost him his sense of judgment, his trust in love. His ability to relax around people. He won the business war that followed. He recovered the losses, he protected his name, he stayed rich, but something inside him became colder after that. Then months later, his mother died, and after that, he stopped trying to feel normal. He worked more, he smiled less, he slept badly, and one night, so quit everything in his head. He drank. That became 2 nights, then many. Then too many to count. Then he finished speaking. Alina said nothing for a while. Sometimes silence is not empty. Sometimes silence is respect. At last, she asked softly, did anyone ever ask if you were okay? Adrian looked at her, then gave the kind of laugh that hides pain. No. It was one word, but inside that one word was a whole lonely life. Alina sat down across from him for just a minute, though she knew she should not. You are not weak, but this hurts you, she said. You are just human. He looked at her as if those words had reached somewhere very old, very deep, very untouched. He wanted to say thank you, but the truth was, thank you felt too small. Because he had met many beautiful women, many intelligent people, many charming faces, but this was different. This girl had done the rarest thing of all. She had spoken to the wound, not the image. And Adrian, though he did not say it yet, was already changing because of her. When the city started to notice, change is quick at first. It doesn't arrive like lightning. It arrives like a soft difference in your routine, like one less drink, like one earlier night more home, like one conversation you keep replaying in your mind. Within 3 weeks, Adrian's staff began to notice the difference. He arrived at meetings on time. He looked more awake. He stopped canceling early appointments. He no longer smelled of alcohol every morning. Even his driver, Marcus, who had been with him for 6 years, noticed that His boss now something asked to go home directly instead of to the Walmart room, but not every night. Some nights Adrian still went there, only now he did not go for the bar. He went for Alina. He never admitted that to himself so directly, but truth often shows itself, though actions long before we are ready to name it. At the club, people started noticing too. The famous millionaire who once drank endlessly now sat with coffee, tea, or water. The woman who used to circle his table lost interest when they saw he was no longer easy attention. Some staff whispered that maybe he was unwell. Some said he had found religion. Some said he was in love. Alina ignored all of it. She kept her behavior respectful, distant, and professional. And maybe that was what drew Adrian closer still. She never used his interest to gain advantage. Never flirted for gifts, never asked for help, never changed her tone around him in a world where almost everyone changed around money. Alina remained herself. One evening, Adrian arrived earlier than usual. The club was still warming up, music low, lights dim. He saw Alina organizing a table and, for the first time, asked, "Are you off after this?" She looked surprised. "In about an hour." "Can I wait?" The question was simple, but it had something careful in it. Alina nodded slowly. "You can." That night, after her shift ended, they walked outside together. The city air was cool. The streets were still bright. Cars moved by in smooth lines of light. Adrian offered to drop her home. At first, she refused. Then he said, "I'm not asking because I'm rich, I'm asking because it's late." So she agreed. Inside the car, the silence between them was not uncomfortable. It felt thoughtful, real. When they reached her neighborhood, Adrian looked out the window and saw things he had not truly seen in years. Old buildings, narrow stairs, small balconies, modest shops closing for the night. Life without polish, life without luxury, life without protection, and yet somehow it felt more honest than the world he lived in. Alina noticed his gaze. "This part of the city surprised you?" she asked. He gave a faint smile. "It reminds me that not everyone lives behind gates." She looked at him. Gates don't protect people as much as they think. That sentence stayed with him. Before she got out, Adrian said, "Alina." She turned. "Thank you." "For what?" "For speaking to me like I'm not untouchable." Her face softened. "No one is untouchable." Then she left. And Adrian remained in the car for a long moment, watching the building door close behind her. He had spent years being admired, but being understood felt completely different. It felt dangerous, beautiful, and terrifying. Because when someone starts mattering to you, you also begin to fear losing them. And deep down, Adrian knew something he did not want to admit. Alina was becoming important, far too important. The woman from his past returns. Just when life began to soften, the past often returns to test whether change is real. One afternoon, Adrian was at his office on the second floor, reviewing a contract when his secretary announced an unexpected visitor. He did not need to hear the name twice. Clara, his former fiancée, the woman whose betrayal had helped destroy his trust in people. For a moment, Adrian said nothing, then told the secretary to let her in. When Clara entered, she still looked elegant, beautiful in the polished, expensive way she had always been. But time had changed her in a small, difficult to explain manner. She still had beauty, but not peace. She sat down and smiled carefully. Adrian, he did not smile back. What do you want? She looked hurt by his coldness, but perhaps she had expected it. I just wanted to talk. We ran out of things to talk about years ago. Clara lowered her eyes. I made mistakes. You made choices. There was no anger in his voice, only distance. And distance can be colder than anger. She tried again. I was young, I was stupid, I let people influence me. Adrian stood by the window, hands in his pockets. You didn't just leave, you broke trust. You handed private information to a man who wanted to destroy me. I said I was sorry. He turned, and what do you want now? That question finally broke her calm. She looked ashamed. My life is not what I thought it would be. Of course, it was not Adrian thought. It rarely is when greed becomes the foundation. But he said nothing. Clara continued. The man she left with had later left her. The life she imagined had not lasted. Clara continued. The man she left with had later left her. The life she imagined had not lasted. The comfort had been false. The circles she entered had been cruel. The image had stayed polished, but the inside had collapsed. Adrian listened quickly, then asked, "Why tell me this?" She hesitated. "Because I thought maybe we could at least make peace." He looked at her for a long time, then said something he never thought he would say calmly. "I already made peace, just not with you." Clara's face changed. He did not say more. He opened the door himself, and she understood. As she left, she turned one last time. "Is there someone else?" For a second, Adrian thought of Alina. Her honest eyes, her quick strength, her simple words. Then he answered carefully, "There is someone who reminded me what truth sounds like." Clara left, and Adrian remained standing alone in the office, looking out over the city. Years ago, this meeting would have shaken him deeply, but now it only confirmed something. He was no longer the same man, and the reason had a name he still tried too hard not to say too often: Alina. That evening he went to the velvet room, not because he was tempted to drink, but because after facing his past, he only wanted to see the one person connected to his future. The confession she was not ready for. Alina noticed the change in Adrian the moment he arrived that night. He looked quicker, not broken, not angry, just deeply reflective. She served 2 other tables, then came to him. "You look like something happened." He gave a smile. "You noticed everything." "You avoid the question well." He looked at the empty chair across from him. "Sit for a minute." She hesitated, then sit. Then sat. "Clara came to see me today," he said. Alina understood immediately from his face that this was not just a name. Someone important, she asked. Alina noticed the change in Adrian the moment he arrived that night. He looked quicker, not broken, not angry, just deeply reflective. She served 2 other tables, then came to him. "You look like something happened." He gave a smile. "You noticed everything." You avoid the question well. He looked at the empty chair across from him. "Sit for a minute." She hesitated, then sat. "Clara came to see me today," he said. Alina understood immediately from his face that this was not just a name. "Someone important?" she asked. "Someone painful." He told her enough for her to understand. Not very every detail, but enough. When he finished, Alina asked, "How do you feel?" He thought for a while, strangely calm. "That's good." He looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "It's because of you." Alina's expression changed slightly. "Because of me?" "Yes, before you, I was living in a fog. I was angry, tired, numb. I thought that was just who I had become. But then you started saying things no one else said. And somewhere in all that, I started hearing myself again." Alina lowered her eyes. The music around them felt far away. "Adrian," no, he said softly, "let me say it. I know you didn't come into my life for this. I know you didn't try to get close to me. I know you never asked me for anything. Maybe that's exactly why this feels real, but I need to be honest." He paused, then said, the words that had been growing in him for weeks, "I wait to see you." Alina looked up slowly. "When I have difficult day, I think of your voice. When I want to give up, I remember the way you look at me like I'm still worth saving. And I don't know when that started mattering this much, but it does." Her heartbeat quickened because she had felt it too. The shift, the connection, the dangerous warmth of someone beginning to matter. But Alina also knew reality. He was Adrian Vale. She was a working woman with responsibilities, limits, and a life far from his. And sometimes people from different worlds do not fear love itself. They fear what comes with it. "Adrian," she said gently, "you are still healing. I know. And maybe right now you feel close to me because I was there at the right time." Maybe, he admitted, but not only because of that. You don't know that yet. He held her gaze. "I know that when I am with you, I don't want to drink. That was to mean something." Alina did not answer immediately because it did mean something, a great deal in fact. But she was careful with him, careful with herself, careful with what broken people can turn love into if they enter in too fast. So she said, the only honest thing she could, "It means something, but if it is real, it will still be real slowly." Adrian nodded. He understood, and maybe that was the moment she trusted him a little more. Because many men with power demand quick answers, but Adrian simply accepted hers. The night before leaving, he said, then slowly, Alina watched him walk away, and for the first time since meeting him, she was no longer afraid only for him. She was also afraid for herself, because saving someone from darkness is one thing, letting them into your heart is another. When change starts to hurt, real change is not romantic all the time. It does not happen in a straight line. It is uncomfortable, messy, and heavy. And for Adrian, the hardest part was yet to come. He had reduced his drinking, he had started sleeping earlier, he had returned to work with more focus, but he had not truly stopped, not fully. There were still nights when the pressure inside him grew too loud. Still mornings where the emptiness returned. Still sudden memories of betrayal, loss, and loneliness that made old habits feel close. 1 week later, after a brutal business day and a tense board meeting, Adrian did something he had not done in a while. He drank before arriving at the club. When he entered the velvet room, Alina sensed it immediately. His steps were controlled but not clean. His eyes were darker, his voice was flatter. He sat down and ordered another drink. Alina stood still for a second, then approached quickly. No. Adrian looked at her. Don't start tonight. No. I said don't start, and I said no. He gave a bitter laugh. You think because I listened a few times you control this now? No, she said, I think because I care. I will not stand here and pretend this is okay. The word care made him tense, maybe because it mattered. Maybe because he feared it too much. You care, he repeated. You don't even know how bad it gets. Then tell me. He looked away, his jaw tightened, then suddenly he stood up. You want to know how bad it gets? Fine. It gets bad enough that silence feels violent. It gets bad enough that even expensive rooms feels like prisons. It gets bad enough that you can look successful to the world and still feel like your life means nothing when you get home. His voice was not loud, but it carried pain, real pain. Alina stayed calm. Then stop poisoning yourself and call it coping. The sentence hit hard. Adrian looked at her as if struck by something invisible. For a second, anger rose in his face, then something else replaced it. Shame. He sat back down heavily and covered his eyes with one hand. And in that moment, Alina saw clearly that this was not pride. This was exhaustion. She moved closer and lowered her voice. You do not have to fight alone. Adrian's voice came rough and low. Then why do I still feel alone? Alina had no perfect answer for that. Because loneliness does not disappear just because someone good enters your life. Sometimes it stays until you decide to let yourself be helped. So she said softly, because healing takes more than wanting it for one night. He looked up slowly, and this time there was something fragile in his face she had never seen so openly before. Fear. Not fear for her, fear of failing. What if I can't do it? He asked. Alina's eyes softened. Then do it one day at a time. What if I fall again? Then get up again. What if one day you are not there? That question reached deeper than either of them expected. Alina stood very still, then answered honestly, You cannot heal only because of me. Adrian, you have to heal because your life matters. That was the hardest truth of all, and perhaps the most necessary. That night, Adrian did not drink more, but for the first time, he agreed to get real help. Not just silence, not just willpower, not just her words, actual help. And that decision would become the turning point. Because sometimes love begins with comfort, but real change begins with truth. The distance that made everything clearer. After that night, Alina did something Adrian did not expect. She stepped back, not cruelly, not dramatically, not carefully, not dramatically, just carefully. She reduced her conversations with him, kept things brief, professional, respectful. At first, Adrian thought he had done something wrong. Then he understood she was protecting both of them. She did not want to become the only thing standing between him and his old life. If he was going to recover, he needed stronger ground than emotion alone. And though the distance hurt him, it also forced him to face himself more honestly. He began seeing a private therapist recommended by Marcus. He reduced his club visits, started exercising in the morning, stopped keeping alcohol in the house. Some days were good, some were hard, some were ugly. There were sleepless nights, restless mornings, sudden anger, sudden sadness. There were moments he almost called Alina just to hear one steady voice. But he didn't, because somewhere inside him he knew she had stepped back for a reason. And if what existed between them as real, it would survive patience. Meanwhile, Alina also struggled. She missed their conversations, missed the strange calm she felt when Adrian spoke honestly, missed seeing the soft version of a man the world only knew as powerful, but she stayed firm because she had watched enough people in life confuse dependency with love. And she would not let that happen here. Still, the heart does not always follow discipline. One rainy evening, nearly 3 weeks after that hard night, Adrian came to the club again. He looked different, clearer, lighter, still serious but stronger. He wore a simple dark coat. No tired eyes, no hidden shake in his hands. He sat down and waited. When Alina came near, he stood. "I wouldn't stay long," he said. He nodded slowly. He looked at her with a kind of quiet respect that felt deeper than before. "I just wanted to tell you something." She said nothing. So he continued, "I have been sober for 18 days. Alina's expressions softened instantly. A real softness this time. "That's good," she said, almost whispering. Adrian nodded. "I know it's not forever yet. I know it's still early, but it's real." She held his gaze. "I'm proud of you." Those words mattered more to him than any public award he had ever received. Then he added, "And you were right." "About what?" "That if it was real, it would still be real slowly." Alina's heart moved at that sentence in a way she could not hide, because now there was no alcohol in the moment, no emotional confusion, no desperate dependence, only honesty. Adrian took a breath. "I'm not here to ask for anything tonight. I just wanted you to know you were not wrong to believe I could do better." Alina looked at him for a long moment, then finally asked, "And do you believe it now?" He answered without hesitation, "Yes." And maybe that was night their connection became something stronger than attraction. It became trust. The night everything changed. Months passed, not perfectly, but meaningfully. Adrian stayed committed to recovery. He still had difficult days, but he no longer hid inside them. He worked differently, lived differently, spoke differently. Even his staff noticed a warmth returning to him that had been absent for years. He smiled more, listened more, rushed less. The city still saw a millionaire, but behind that image, a man had slowly begun becoming whole again. And through all of it, Alina remained present in his life, carefully, steadily, beautifully. They began meeting outside the club in simple places: a quiet cafe, a walk in the park, a bookstore, a hospital pharmacy where Alina picked up medicine for her mother. Real places, honest places. Adrian never tried to impress her with extravagance. And Alina never treated him like a valet. That was what made everything between them feel different from anything he had known before. One evening, Adrian invited Alina to dinner at his house. At first she hesitated, but by then enough time had passed. Enough trust had been built, so she said yes. When she arrived, she expected formality, luxury, distance. Instead, Adrian himself opened the door, no staff around them, no unnecessary display, just warmth. The house was still beautiful, but no longer cold. There were fresh flowers, Soft lights, simple music, and for the first time it felt lived in, not staged, not empty. They ate slowly and talked for hours about childhood, responsibilities, fear, regret, hope. Alina laughed more that night than she had expected, and Adrian watched her as though he still found it difficult to believe that someone like her existed. At one point, they moved to the balcony. The city stretched below them in lights. Wait for a moment, Adrian said. You know, this place used to feel like proof that I had made it. Alina looked around, and now he looked at her. Now it only feels complete when someone honest is here. She lowered her eyes slightly. The air felt different, closer, softer, and then Adrian did something he had waited too long to do. He stepped closer and said very quickly, I love you. Alina's breath caught, not because she was shocked, but because she knew he meant it. There was no rush in his voice, no drama, no performance, only truth. I didn't want to say it before I was ready, he continued. He didn't want to say it while I was still broken in ways I had not faced, but I have known for a long time that what I feel for you is not confusion, it's not gratitude, it's not loneliness, it's love. Alina looked at him, and in her eyes there was emotion too deep for quick words. You scared me at first, she admitted softly. I know. You still scare me a little. A faint smile touched his face. That sounds fair. She smiled too, through emotion. Then she said the words he had not demanded, but had quickly hoped for. I love you too. It was not loud, it was not dramatic, but for Adrian, it was the first truly peaceful moment he had felt in years. And when he kissed her, it did not feel like escape, it felt like arrival. The test no one saw coming, but life, as always, was not finished testing them. Just when happiness begins to feel safe, something often rises to ask if it is strong enough to easy. A few weeks later, Alina's mother's condition worsened suddenly. She was taken to the hospital late at night. Alina called no one at first. She was used to carrying difficult things quickly. But Adrian found out when she didn't answer for hours, and Marcus helped locate where she was. When he arrived at the hospital, Alina was sitting outside the emergency ward, exhausted, pale, and barely holding herself together. Adrian did not ask many questions. He simply sat beside her and stayed all night. No cameras, no staff, no announcements, no attention, just presence. When bills became complicated, he helped, but only in the way Alina would accept, respectfully. Without making her feel small, without turning support into power, and in that hospital corridor, something became deeply clear to Alina. Adrian was no longer just a man trying to be saved. He had become a man capable of standing beside someone else's pain. That is one of the clearest signs of real change. Not when a person says they are better, but when they become gentle with other people's suffering. Her mother recovered slowly, not fully, not instantly, but enough. And after that difficult period, Alina looked at Adrian differently. Not with caution anymore, but with trust, complete trust, because sometimes love is not proven in beautiful places. Sometimes it is proven under bad lights, in long nights, in moments of fear, in the way someone stays. And Adrian stayed. The life he thought he did not deserve. A year earlier, Adrian Vale had been a man drawing In expensive silence, a man sitting under the club lights pretending not to fall apart, a man drinking not because he enjoyed it, but because he did not know how else to live with what hurt. Now he was different, not perfect, not magically healed, but different in the way that mattered. He no longer needed the club, he no longer lived in the same darkness, he no longer feared the mirror the way he once had. His relationship with Alina remained honest, grounded and real. She continued working for some time, then eventually moved into a better role in Adrian's charitable foundation, one focused on recovery support, mental health, outreach, and family care assistance. It was her idea, and Adrian helped build it because once you survive your own darkness, sometimes the next step is helping someone else survive theirs. Together, they created spaces for people struggling with addiction, loneliness, and emotional collapse. Not glamorous places, real ones, human ones. And perhaps that was the biggest surprise of all. The millionaire who once drank every night in silence became the reason other people began finding their way back too. As for the velvet room, Adrian only returned there once, not to sit at the bar, not to revisit the pain, but to stand outside for a moment beside Alina. He looked at the entrance, then smiled faintly. This place almost became my ending, he said. Alina looked at him, but it didn't. He nodded. No, because one night, one girl decided not to stay silent. Alina smiled gently and one man finally listened. They stood there for a moment longer, then turned away together, and that perhaps was the most beautiful part of all. Not that love had arrived dramatically, not that pain had disappeared forever, but that two people from very different worlds had met in a dark place and chosen truth over destruction. And sometimes that choice is where a whole new life begins. Strong closing message. Some people look successful on the outside while quickly falling apart on the inside. And sometimes the person who changes everything is not the one who flatters you, fears you, or wants something from you. Sometimes it is the one who tells you the truth. Even when it is uncomfortable, this story reminds us of something powerful. Money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy peace. Status can earn attention, but it cannot earn real love. And no matter how broken someone looks, one honest voice, one truth connection, and one brave decision can still change a life. If this story touched your heart, then remember this. Never ignore the pain behind someone's silence. Never mistake addiction for strength. And never underestimate the power of someone who cares enough to say, "This is not right, and you matter too much for this." This is Noah's narrative, where every story has a meaning and every ending leaves something behind. Thank you.